All right. Hi.
Hi.
Who are you?
My name is Linda Carr. I've lived here in Milwaukee since 2012, which I moved down from Bellingham, Washington. And I really like the fact that it's a nice small city and that I've gotten to know a lot of people here in Milwaukee.
And what section of town do you live in?
I live over off of 42nd on Fieldcrest, which is about 3 blocks south of Johnson Creek.
Okay. Well,
It used to be the old airport, apparently. I did a little bit of research about the area.
really?
Yeah, where I live.
Interesting. And what do you like best about Milwaukee?
I like that I've been able to get involved in several different situations here in Milwaukee. I started out originally working with the Milwaukee Garden Club and then became the president, and I'm still the president.
All right.
And also the museum, the Milwaukee Historical Society Museum, and at the Milwaukee Community Center also I do things there. So.
What do you do at the community center?
I'm one of the Meals on Wheels volunteers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it is.
And talk a little bit about Meals on Wheels, just real quick.
Meals on Wheels, we deliver meals on a daily basis. I only do it a couple times a month, but on a daily basis to people throughout the Milwaukee, Oak Grove. I actually deliver clear out by Carver. People that can't leave their home, they're maybe have problems with movement, or they're elderly, or they're by themselves. So we deliver a meal every day on Monday through Friday.
Okay. Interview to say. Okay, we need more questions.
There's a second page.
Okay. Where would I go from there?
Well, see, this doesn't really matter, but here you go. We've already done that.
How long have you lived? Yeah,
She kind of told us a personal story, community and volunteering. She got
we
us
did that. What's your life like now? Tell me about living in Milwaukee.
There you go. You can ask that question.
Okay, tell me about living in Milwaukee.
I like that it's a small enough community. I do a lot of walking. I can walk from my home to downtown. I can walk from my home up to our only grocery store, Safeway.
That's a pretty good walk.
No, it's about a mile. It's really not that far. To downtown, it's about a mile and a quarter, I think, a mile and a half. Yeah. When the Max came in, I was there to celebrate that, and I really did like the Max. Unfortunately, with the pandemic right now, I don't know that anybody's riding it, but I used to walk quite frequently down to the Max station on Johnson Creek and go anywhere I wanted to in downtown Portland and over. I used to volunteer up at the zoo, and I would go up there too. Unfortunately, I don't do that anymore. So.
Yeah, the pandemic's really put a stop to a lot of
It
things.
has indeed, yes it has.
So, you said you came in 2012?
2012.
And why did you come to Milwaukee?
Well, I'd retired, and up in Bellingham, although we liked it, we had a huge house on a huge property. My husband is elderly, older than me. I'm elderly also. And we needed to downsize. And I have a niece here. We liked Portland. We'd been to Portland and just started coming down here about 5 times actually, and did a whole search of the area and really liked Milwaukee. So ended up buying in Milwaukee.
Well, I'm glad. I like Milwaukee too.
Me too.
Okay, what else do we have? So, Bellingham, did you grow up in Washington then?
No, I grew up in Northern California.
Oh.
But Bellingham, we moved there in 1998. So lived there for about 20 some odd years.
Beautiful place.
It is a beautiful place.
Cool.
Not 20, 14 years, I guess. Anyway, it's a beautiful place, yes.
Okay, and so yeah, tell us your personal story.
My personal personal story.
Yeah, so
What-
you grew up in...
Northern
in-
California. I was born and raised in a place called Petaluma, California. If you can pet a cat, you can pet a dog, but you can't pet Petaluma.
That goes here, yeah.
And I was actually a third generation Californian, which is pretty rare. My grandmother was born there, my father was born there, and I was born there. And actually both my children were born there too.
Ah.
So they're fourth generation Californians.
Nice.
Northern Californians. Grew up on a small farm, 5 acres, where my grandparents lived, my cousins and aunt and uncle lived, and we lived, and I had 4 sisters. So, and the same thing that you were talking about, used to get up, my cousin and I, who were the same age, would pack a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and take off into the hills, and we wouldn't come back until it got evening, and we knew our parents would start worrying about us around 6 o'clock. So, but otherwise, we just took off and went everywhere, right? Yeah.
We're fortunate to be in that generation, I think.
I think so, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so that's where you mostly lived, is in Northern California?
That's correct, yes.
And I went to Bellingham, and, okay, hold on.
May I interrupt the
Yes.
question? You had stated that you work a lot with Milwaukee Garden Club.
Yes.
Well, how did you get into Milwaukee Garden Club? And-
Yes, well, I am always been a gardener. When I grew up on my grandparents' farm, my grandmother was an avid gardener, and I always helped her. I love that. I got my Master Gardener's certificate in California 35 years ago. Went up to Washington, was working full-time, so I didn't do it there, but I still gardened. Came here and got a continuing certificate here in Oregon. And I said, okay, I want to have a community garden club to go to. So I went to, saw online that the Milwaukee Garden Club was happening. And I walked in the door, and Enid Briggs said, "You're a new person!" And she basically took me under her wing. I loved it. She was such a wonderful lady. And she was president at the time. And the next time the voting came up, she said, "I nominate Linda Carr." And I became president.
And what kind of projects does the Milwaukee Garden Club?
Well, we used to do a lot more than we do now. We maintain the Milwaukee Historical Society Museum, the beds, and we're attempting to get a backyard habitat certification using a lot of native plants and pollinating plants. So that's been happening. We still are involved in something called the Oral Hall out in Sandy, where they have a big community, not a community garden, it's called a Gardens of Enchantment, and it's for blind people, blind and sight impaired people. There's a big camp there that happens every year, and the gardens are the 5 senses gardens. So, smell, sight, sound, what are the other 2 things? Taste.
And I'm assuming not sight.
I'm sorry, what?
And I'm assuming not sight.
No, well, actually, sight is one of them,
Oh.
because there are things that are, you're sight impaired. It's sight impaired and blind, so it can be both. So you can see things that are really large and bright, and maybe off to the side if you have macular degeneration. So we do maintain a small area out there, although since the pandemic, of course, that's changed a lot too. We have a small plot at the Milwaukee Center, roses, that we maintain.
Those are beautiful.
Aren't they beautiful? They are lovely. And we started up about 4 years ago a scholarship for high school seniors. Because of course we always need funds to do something like that, we had a plant sale every year, the day before Mother's Day, and raise the funds for things like the scholarships and plants for the museum and plants for Oral Hall and plants for the Milwaukee Center. So
I was involved in that in a very small way, and they were selling native plants only
at the
at the Milwaukee something. excuse me, I thought it was the Milwaukee Garden Club, at the church here parking lot.
Oh, right. Well, that was where we when I first became president, they hadn't had the sale for a couple of years. So then I said, well, we need funds. Let's see what we can do about setting up. And so several of the members were associated with the Linwood Covenant Church, and we set it up there for 2 years. It wasn't the greatest spot, although there was lots of, parking. People just would buzz on by there and not even really see what was happening, you know. Although a couple of times, a couple of our more enthusiastic members would get out there and wave their hands. Come in. And then fortunately we got involved with the museum and have it here. And this is a wonderful spot. How many years do we have that here? 4 years? Something like that. 5 years?
So, yeah, 4 or 5, and it's going to continue, don't you?
Yes, it will continue.
Well, that's another question that we can always ask. So you mentioned the museum a couple of times. Tell us about your involvement with the Milwaukee Museum and the Historical Society.
Well, my main interest has always been the plants, and so that's what I'm involved in. But most recently, I started doing docent work one Saturday a month, and I've always had an interest in history. However, since the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, and so I'm still learning a lot about the Milwaukee Museum, and enjoy it.
On the board, right?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. And I am on the board now of the Milwaukee Museum. Yes.
I didn't know you had a board.
Yes, we do.
I'm telling you, I never get any info.
So let's, it seems like you've had a lot of activity that you call pause.
Called what?
Paused.
I'm not following what that means.
Paused, stopped.
Okay, stopped.
And the reason for that is because we've had this COVID-19 outbreak.
Right.
And since we are reserving for the posterity of forever,
Right.
why don't you tell us a little bit about your COVID experience? How did it make you feel? And
Isolated.
what all went on?
Yeah, very isolated. The pandemic is, and my husband is 85 years old. He also has some serious health issues, and so being very concerned for his health and his welfare, we haven't done anything that we used to do. We used to do quite a bit of traveling. We haven't done that. We did take one trip in October to see his family in Oklahoma, which was a very different experience because nobody's wearing masks back there. I know. But pretty isolated, yeah. It has a lot to do with the fact that I don't do much right now in terms of the volunteer work. I used to volunteer quite a bit with the Master Gardeners. Like I said, I was volunteering at the zoo, and I was volunteering at the farmers markets, and so I'm not doing any of that. I don't want to expose my husband to any more than is necessary.
Right. What would you like the public to know about Milwaukee?
Stay away. No. Well, I am disappointed also to see all the apartment buildings going in. I truly like the idea of individual homes. Maybe it's not the most advantageous way to have as many people as you can here, but some beautiful old homes here, and not even fancy homes, just nice single family homes. We were fortunate enough in our area. Our home was built in 1960, and the whole area there was several homes that were built in that area, in that era. And I like my neighborhood. I like the people in my neighborhood. We need a grocery store, though. We need a good grocery store.
Yeah, we were this secret store that's going into the marketplace.
Well, I heard it's Walmart.
I don't think anybody knows anything about it.
Who would know? Who would know that kind of stuff?
The city, but
They don't actually know either because they're not involved with any of the negotiations, so.
it's true, they were hoping, they were happy to know there was a grocery store going in like all of us, but nobody knows what it is. Walmart is just something they're saying on Facebook.
Right, right. I know Joann's is not going to be there much longer because they're opening a big store over on 82nd, Joann's.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's too bad.
I know. So that was at least some draw. It would be a place I'd go to. Yeah. But
Dollar Tree.
Dollar Tree. I know. The liquor store. Nope.
Right, yeah.
Okay, anything else?
No, I think we got it.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I wish my children lived closer. They live still in Northern California. But, you know, and I'm trying to convince my daughter because she works remotely anyway. It doesn't matter where she works. But, you know, she's pretty settled where she is.
Don't forget the happy birthday.
Right, say that, please.
Could you say happy birthday to Milwaukee?
Happy birthday, Milwaukee, for 120 years. I've only been here a few of those, but I'm glad you're here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, just turn it off or pause?
Pause.
Yep, pause.
Pause.
No, over there. You're right.
Gonna record, but, yep.